Let's start. Hi, everyone. My name is Tal Gibish. I am happy to have you here today. I'm the owner and founder of the boutique agency for relocation and immigration to Germany, Gibish Consulting GmbH. And we help with immigration and preparation for relocation and all kind of bureaucratic stuff that you can imagine, and even the ones that you don't imagine. Today we're going to talk about Germany in 60 minutes. If hopefully we get to 60 minutes, but we're not going to break the time like last time. We're going to do a reality check. And basically, what it says is that people there are a lot of myths about Germany, about Germans. And people arrive to Germany, move to Germany, and they kind of overwhelmed by the differences, I would say cultural differences. I even wrote a book about it, Cultural Differences for Americans. You can find it on Amazon. And then people feel like they're not prepared enough. But to tell you the truth, it doesn't matter how well you're prepared before, the reality always meets you. So today, what we're going to try to do is take the overwhelming a bit notch down, and then to see if there are more things that we can find out together. So I'm going to start talk about topics that I see usually come up with clients, with families, with individuals that are moving to Germany from actually countries from all over the world. And if you want to bring up more topics, please write it in the chat, and then I can discuss any topic. Well, hopefully ethical topics, and kind of like allowed topics that you're going to bring up. So let's start with actually Germany welcomes immigrants. The microphones are off, so I wouldn't hear you laugh. Okay. So the German government throughout the years announced many times that they welcome immigrants and expats. I imagine myself it was true at some point. Please close your cameras. I imagine myself it was true at some point during the last several years. It became harsh reality that the government says one thing, welcome immigrants, sign agreements with India, with other countries, and for Americans, for example, did you know that Americans have here in Germany, from a treaty back in the days in the 50s, they have preferable position and they're supposed to get priority when immigrating. Reality doesn't work that way. In general, it's very hard to say that authorities are welcoming to immigrants. Most of them are very welcoming. People are very happy to get more diversity. Of course, there are some that are not very happy with immigration, different types of immigrations or asylum seekers, but most of them actually are very happy. Of course, you cannot include all the 83 million people, but in general, that's the spirit. Authorities, on the other hand, are very different. What it means is that each authority in Germany has different policy. When you start when you're not from preferred countries like the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, Israel, etc., then you have to have a visa. So your journey starts in the German embassy in your home country, which means that you first meet the embassy employees, either locals or Germans, and then you start your bureaucratic journey. Sometimes it works very fast, sometimes not that good. And then you arrive to Germany and you go, for example, let's say that you decided to live in Dortmund. So for foreigners, I mean not EU residents, not EU citizens, or not German citizens, they have to register as residents in the Ausländerbehörde, the immigration office. So the registration itself is done already at the immigration office and not at the city hall like the rest of the people. In Berlin, for example, it's the same. It's done at the same office, no problem. But in Köln, for example, you have to bring certified translation of your marriage certificate. And if you got a visa, for example, a blue card, before you arrived to Germany, and you showed your marriage certificate that was translated by a notary in your home country, certified translation by a notary, and it was accepted by the embassy. It is not accepted in Köln. You have to retranslate with a certified translator in Germany in order to for the certificate to get accepted. And even then, it happened to us in Nuremberg a few weeks ago, that even then they just missed the part of certified translator in Germany, and they made my clients to actually go back and after translating again, and then we just wrote them excuses, but you just missed the top of the page that it says certified translator in Germany. And then they responded with, okay, so come and show us. So sometimes it's overwhelming. It's a little bit a problem, and people think that they're not welcome. But one thing you can say for Germans, they give equal treatment to everybody. Not a very good one, but basically it's everybody. It's not personal because you're American or because you're an Israeli or because you're Indian. It doesn't matter. They treat like that to everyone. That's customer service. Maybe we get to that later. So welcome Germany. Not so sure, but make sure when you come to Germany that you would have, at least familiar face to talk to. So I'm happy to function as the first friend in Germany for my clients that we go through the journey of the relocation from their home country to Germany, no matter where. And that helps to a little bit minimize the culture shock that you're used to from your home country. And that actually brings us to customer service. Lack of customer service, which means that, Americans, and I also have a lot of Israelis that are used to good customer service because they want your money. They want you to stay client or customer. They want you to be a client. They want you to be a customer. And then they treat you nicely. In Germany, they don't care. For those of you who actually already moved to Germany and are on the journey to find a tax advisor, it's a hard road to take. And then to find someone that is nice and willing to take new clients, that is something that is very challenging. And of course, someone who speaks English, that's also quite a challenge. But it's also kind of a lesson that, and this is the point that I like about this point of view, is that money is not everything. Germans, they take the time, yes. They're not willing to take you no matter what, which is definitely a good thing in some circumstances. But also, it's nice to know that your value is not necessarily in money. They take their time, they value their balance between work and life. They work in order to live and not live in order to work, like I can say about Americans, for example, or British. It's very common. So this is something that I find very comforting, I have to say. And from there, I think we can go to emails, I would say. Because when you send emails to I'm not talking about German authorities because that might take a long time until someone answers. But when you have a colleague and you send an email and you expect an answer, when you're coming from more advanced work culture, I would say, you would say, or advanced, let's not say advanced, maybe faster work experience, then you basically, if you don't get an answer within like 2 hours, you think like, what, this person is like dead or something. In Germany, the most average time, I would say, the average time to answer an email is about 3 business days. So no, they're not dead. They're just taking their time and slow. And it is something that allows them to concentrate, hopefully, in what they have to do and not to answer fast just for make it fast. Which can be, in everything, you have to find this ray of light in order to continue. And then when we're talking about emails, obviously, we cannot miss the digital realm of Germany, of Lekov. So I do have to admit that they made a huge step during the last few years. There, a few of the Bundesländer, Bayern, Baden-Württemberg, Berlin, and some others actually switched to a lot of online services for many authorities. And also it's possible to do, except for the online services, it's also possible to do other things that are not authorities, but you can handle digitally stuff. However, when you get your residence permit as an immigrant, you get a card. In most places now, for example, in Berlin, due to budget issues, they stopped issuing cards, plastic cards, and they just give stickers to put in your passport. And you have to ask specifically for a plastic card if you're interested. When you get the card, you get also an envelope with codes in order to activate your card. And that means that you're supposed to go smoothly in the EU line, even though you don't have EU passport. And it also means that you can handle some stuff online. Supposed to. And that means we have something, I don't know how many of you already heard the term Anmeldung, which is registration as a resident of Germany. And you get this card, you activate it, and then you're moving from your short-term apartment to your long-term apartment or another short-term apartment, and you're so happy. You have the card, you activated it, and you want to do this online, the Anmeldung. That you want to do this online instead of going to an appointment again. And then you're not EU citizen and not German citizen. So in some places, you still have to go to schedule an appointment and go and do this in person. Some things it is possible to take to do online, but a lot of things are not really possible, even though the authorities say it is possible. So this is something just to keep in mind and not to be disappointed that it's not working. Also, this process of issuing these cards, if it's residence permit, it can be between 1 month to 4. Driving license, the plastic cards take between 1 month to 6. And German IDs actually take less time, about between 2 weeks to 1.5 months. I think last year there was a problem because all the plastic cards are printed out in a specific print house, and they had strikes and they had technical issues, and then it stopped the press, and nobody could get a card for months. So they had a backlog afterwards, and things are slow here. So this is the main, I think it's the main theme here. Things are slow, and definitely slower from the places that you come. So this is something to take under consideration every time. I was at a conference this Tuesday, 2 days ago, for defense company, because we have also a department that deals with global mobility for defense industry. And I was there, and one of the things that they talked that constantly came up is the German mentality for how to do things for companies mostly, but I can say it's also possible to, you can find it in people as well, in individuals. So Germans, for example, the German companies, to decide that they want to go to a different direction, people laugh that it takes about a year. It's kind of laugh, but in every joke there's kind of like sometimes it's true. So it takes them a year to decide what they're going to change, and then another 2 years of how to change what they wanted, what they decided to change. If the reality, is the same or not, probably changed, it's very hard for them to keep up. And the best example is the automotive industry in Germany, which is well known for Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, etc. And they just missed the point that the world went electric. And when they woke up, it was rather late. And now they are trying to speed things up. But since in Germany, everything is so slow, including decision-making process, so it took them a few more years to actually decide to go to this direction, and then how to create this change. And at some point, they just lost track of how to change. So a lot of things are going really slow. It doesn't mean all companies. Of course, there are small companies that can make changes easier, some international companies that are actually better with faster decision making. It has disadvantages, of course, but it's also better to work. So when you, for example, choosing a place to work or looking for a place to work, then take this into consideration. If it's German company, it might be very slow, very different from what you know so far until you moved and found this job. So take this under consideration. Okay, punctuality. Punctuality is an issue. There is a myth that since we are recorded, I don't want to say when was the last time that it probably was punctual, the German authorities or industries. But definitely, I have to say that it's not true. Germans as individuals can be punctual. So I can tell you that I went to a Star Trek museum, and a private Star Trek museum that is very known here in Germany, in Eberswalde in Brandenburg, and the tour guide asked to come, museum guide, sorry, asked to come at 10 to 7 p.m. And people showed up 20 to 7, 15 to 7, but definitely not at 10 to 7. And a couple showed up at 10 to 7, and he was upset because they are late. to his opinion. But since everybody's German there, so everybody saw it the same way. And they apologized for arriving on time because it seems to be late for individuals. However, in trains, that's the best example I think that we can give. Deutsche Bahn. Deutsche Bahn is very famous for being late. So if you're late for the train of, I don't know, 10:30, for example, a.m., there is a possibility that you still catch the train of 9:30, the hour before. They're very famous for being late. Now they announced that they are trying to fix this and make it better, to change the process, to maybe to have less trains. But in general, don't expect punctuality. When you go to an appointment at the Bürgerbüro, then and you have your registration appointment, for example, they invite you to 9:24, and you think, wow, that is such a weird, like not 9:30, because basically they work in 12 minutes per person or per appointment. And then you come at 9:24. Sorry, you're supposed to come 15 minutes before. You arrive. Sometimes they don't let you into the building, but hopefully they do. You sit there and it's 9:24. No one calls you. You look at the screen, waiting for your number. It's 9:30. Nobody calls you. 9:45. Nobody calls you. It might be that an hour afterwards, after you thought that they completely forgot you, then they call you. Because punctuality is not a thing in authorities. I can tell you that I had an appointment at the immigration office in Berlin with a student, and we waited 2.5 hours because they can. So I guess they had, some of them had lunchtime and they needed the break. In some offices in Germany, they start as early as 6 a.m. So I understand, but it makes people feel uncomfortable. They don't care. So, and this is something that is really important to understand. It's not personal. They come, they do their job or not, or trying to do. And then if it works, great. If not, they probably wouldn't go the extra mile in order to help you. If you don't expect, you're not going to be disappointed. So I think this is some kind of rule that you can take with you when you move to Germany. Just don't expect to super duper kind of treatment, or to be special, or to be treated as you normally used to. It's not going to work here. So this is something that is important to remember. And then we go for humor, because sometimes I try to ease the atmosphere with humor. And I know that people think that Germans don't have humor. They do. They do. They're not cold people. It takes them time to create friendships. It's easier usually when you have children. So with play dates or others, not always, of course, but most times it does work. And also helps if you're in specific scene, or like clubbing, or you're going to the same classes of painting, art, something like that. So that makes it a little bit easier. But in Germany, from what I noticed, I live here for more than 12 years. And what I noticed with Germans is that it takes them a long time to be your friends. But when they are your friends, they're your friends. And this is something you might not talk for 2 years, but you're still best friends like the moment that you met, or with Germany like 2 months after. But still, it's something that is really crucial to understand. it takes them time to trust and to laugh at your jokes. That might take a while. For you to laugh from their jokes, that's also going to take time, because Germans do have humor. It's just that you have to be a German or Germanized enough in order to understand that or get the point. It's not funny sometimes, but we watch German stand up on television or shows, and someone tells joke, and my husband is German, and he cracking out completely, like laughing out loud completely, and I'm like, it wasn't funny. And then, at the beginning, he explained the jokes because I couldn't get it. Now I'm just, it's not funny. Or I get why you think that it's funny, but it's not funny. I did find a solution for that, and this is something that I definitely suggest that you you would do if you're interested in creating some kind of humor, mutual humor with Germans. Find a joke that they would like to break the ice. Since I'm originally from Israel, I allow myself to tell specific kind of jokes, and Germans are terrified from this. And it's funny for me because, in Israel, we tell these jokes all the time. And because how do you deal with these things besides, humor? So I'm not going to tell you this joke because it's really not for a recorded session. But I do tell this joke, and then the Germans look at me and they're shocked and they're not sure that they're allowed to laugh. It is funny, but they don't know if they can laugh or not. And then and I'm like, that's okay to laugh. And then they're laughing. And then everything, starts smoothly. We're okay. We can talk. We find the topics that we can talk about. We find shared interest that might lead to jokes, might lead to humor. But don't expect to understand the jokes. If you do, sooner rather than later, great. Just don't have this expectation that you would find it funny as well. Probably wouldn't happen. Let's go a little bit for real life, let's say more. There is a myth that Germany is more expensive than it used to be. And this is something that I hear a lot. I used to visit Germany 10 years ago when it was much cheaper. I could find a hotel, I could find an apartment, I could find a kindergarten, and it was really cheap, and groceries were really cheap. Well, all over the world, prices are rising. It's not something that is very unique to Germany. In Germany, it's huge. It's not as huge as the United States. I know that Americans see it's like, something that is not as big as others might look at this, but still it's a really big country and there are differences. So if you live in Berlin, it's the biggest city in Germany, more than 4 billion people. Sorry, not more, a little bit less than 4 million people. And there are places that are cheaper and some are not so cheap. It depends where do you decide to live. If you decide to live in Munich, for example, it would be super expensive. The salaries, however, are adjusted to the cost of living. If you decide to live in Saarland or next to the American bases, for example, prices are low relatively to Germany, But for Americans, they find it extremely expensive. I saw this video some time ago that after the whole war in Iran started, then the gas prices went up. And in Germany, they started this regulation that you can increase the price of gas only once a day and not more than that, because they used to do it a few times a day. And then someone complained that €1.27 is for 1 liter is extremely pricey. And I look at this video and I'm thinking, I just went to next to a gas station here in Berlin, and it was 2.20, something like that. Like, perspective. So a lot of things are really a matter of perspective. In Berlin, for example, kindergarten is 23, can be, sorry, a public kindergarten can be €23 a month. In Munich, it can be 150 a month. In Hamburg, pretty much 40, something like that a month. So it definitely different from place to place, and from even within the cities, within the Bundesstates themselves, it can change. So this is something to consider when you think of cost of living. Salaries are definitely a factor that is impacted by the cost of living. Not always. In Berlin, for example, no one thought of adjusting the salaries to the cost of living. But still, in Berlin, for example, most times there is a functioning public transportation. Even though when we talked about punctuality in Germany, I relearned the meaning of 1 minute. It can be 1 minute, it can be 10 minutes, it can be an hour, it can be not coming at all. So it's something that you have to learn, as it comes. But basically, you don't really need a car. My husband is an original Berliner, one of the few that are left. And he did his driving license at the age of 38 because he didn't need any. And I came here, I have driving license since I'm 17. And I came here obviously with years of experience, and he said, okay, so you're driving. And I'm like, I'm not driving on the Autobahn. And then he decided that for the best of, so we can stay alive, so he would, make his driving license, which is very expensive right now, by the way, in Germany. It's a few thousands of euros. They're trying to make it cheaper. Announced. Let's see what's going to happen with that. But in general, we didn't need a car before we actually traveled with the train, with public transportation. Right now, there is Deutschland ticket that costs 69 per person per month. And it's very helpful. With the Deutschland ticket, you can take the regional trains, public transportation all over the country, except for fast trains, express trains. And then you can go everywhere in Germany because most places are really, really well connected with public transportation, or at least connected with public transportation. And with the Deutschland ticket, you can also go to Luxembourg, you can also go to the Netherlands, Belgium, Czech Republic, Poland, all these kind of places. Wherever regional train comes from Germany, it's also possible to take the Deutschland ticket and travel there. And then we talked about kindergarten, so I want to bring up the education. There's a myth that is partially true, because that's how you create myth, that education is free in Germany. So let's break it up to a few stages. Kindergarten, public, as I said, can be 20, 3 to 200 for public kindergarten. But from the age of 6 to 16, sorry, there's Schulpflicht. You have to go to school. Homeschooling is illegal in Germany. And then you don't pay for school until the age, until you finish school. You can, of course, stay in school 12, 13 years, and it's for free for public schools. Higher education is different. It's free. If you are used to pay for a state university 25,000 a year, then yes, it's free. If you pay only 300 to 500 euros per semester in the German public universities, you feel like it's free. And I can definitely understand this feeling, but definitely it's not. It's just a matter of perspective. You have to also find accommodation. You have to do the whole cost of living. Besides that, it's pretty complicated. And most German public universities have German taught programs. So you have to be at the level that you're able to actually attend the university and be admitted to it when your German is B2, level B2 or C1. So this is something that you have to take under consideration when you're trying, when you want to find the study program in Germany in order to be a student or as a additional, I don't know, like in to your work or life. Public universities, yes, they cost much less. If you want an English studying program, that starts costing you. So it starts usually in 4,000 semester and depends on the credits, and it can go even to 40. There are private universities that that also take 40,000 a year. Not only that, by the way, there are international schools in Germany that the tuition fee is in Munich. There's one that is 28,000 a year per child, and if you have siblings for the same school, not always you can get a discount. So education is not really free, and it really depends on where you're going. Of course, it depends if you want your child to go to a public school. He would go to a welcome class, willkommen class at the beginning in order to learn the German, so he or she can use when they arrive to the regular class with regular study materials. And that also might cost you money because you would need a tutor to help with the German. So a lot of factors that you have to put in, and education is partially depends on where it's free. I think that for most countries that are not Scandinavians or other Eastern Europe, or let's say Europe in general, it's really, it would be cheaper for you than in your home country. And I think that we're going to go to my last topic is, well, I'll do just, let's two. One is the job market. A lot of people think that it would be easy to come and find a job after they move here. It is partially true. Depends on a lot of factors, obviously. It's always depends. So it depends on the industry. And sometimes it's easier to find from your home country. High tech, sometimes it's possible. High tech is very different right now, goes through waves of layoffs and then recruiting again. So it kind of changes, but there are other industries, including the healthcare industries, that your advantage lies in German. And sometimes when you start learning German before you arrive to Germany, you don't practice your German as well as you can when you arrive to Germany. always take under consideration that you would need time. Unless you come in with a job already, which most times don't happen, take your time, know the mentality, know the industry, learn German. That would be major advantage to you when you look for a job, even in the high-tech industry or other industries that are considered to be internationals. So this is something that always helps. It's not always easy to find a job, but it's not a disaster. Like a lot of people putting it, it's crushing. It's not possible to find a job. It is possible. You just need patience. And a lot of people that move to Germany find this component a little bit problematic because they used to think to things going more comfortable and faster. And in Germany, the code is patience. Things are complicated. Things are slow, and patience. And the German word for this is Geduld. And just remember to have patience every move that you go. It doesn't matter if you're 1 month in Germany or 1 year or 10, believe me. So that is from my side. Sorry, talked a lot. Let's go to the chat and to think. An immigrant in Germany can do if they don't already speak German is to start learning before you get there. So definitely it will make transition smoother. I agree. But definitely it's something that you have to consider, that even though you start in your home country, it's not always something that you can count on, and you always have to continue studying. And it can be really frustrating because people sometimes, you encounter a German, and then he says that he speaks a little English. And sometimes they do speak a little English, but sometimes, and then you have to try and do either English or to try the German that you already know. But let's say a lot of Germans say they speak a little English and then they start like Oxfordian English, like they lived in the UK for bad accent, like Canada. All of their lives. So it's kind of frustrating because they notice that your German is not good, and then they just switch to English. Or couples that started dating, that one is immigrant and one is German, and they start speaking in English, it stays there. So always insist of speaking German. And that's how you learn. It's frustrating, definitely if you're an educated person, definitely if you're an adult with intelligence. It's really frustrating because you don't want to sound like a baby. You don't want to sound like you have no vocabulary, but try. Make the mistakes and then correct them, and until you learn. And this is how you can continue. But definitely, you're right. You start, it's definitely possible and good idea to begin when you're in your home country. It appears that nearly impossible, or at least very expensive for retirees who will not be working and have never worked in Germany to obtain medical insurance in Germany over 65. So yes, health insurance here is not free. That's also something that kind of a myth, that universal healthcare. I think it's mostly with Americans that think that, or that here, that health insurance here is free. It's not. Public, there's a difference. I'm not going to start the whole background here. If you take the relocation prep service that we have, so you get a really huge and thorough guidance of how the health system works here, healthcare system works here. But there's public and there's private. And the public health insurance you get mostly from employment status, not employer, but employment. And then if you're an employee, you get, and you're under a certain age or in other circumstances. So you can get into the public health insurance, and then they take 16 to 17% of your salary, and the employer pays the rest of the amount to the health insurance. With private, it's a little bit different, but also can be very expensive. It depends on pre-existing conditions. It can depends on your age. It depends on many, many factors. It can be very expensive, and of course, they can change the price. Public health insurances cannot change the price by their own decision. The government decides on that. It's regulated. Unfortunately, less than a year ago, there was kind of a change in regulations, and the public health insurance companies decided to not to accept anymore people over 55. And I can tell you that there were many European citizens that moved here with us, and with no problem, we managed to apply and get accepted to TECA, to Balmer, to AUKA, and other health insurance companies. At some point, they stopped. They just decided that it's a change in regulations. Yes, that they're not going to accept over 45, even if they have health insurance, public health insurance from their home countries. There are exceptional circumstances. Yes, there are specific cases that it's possible, but as a general rule, they don't accept over 55. They are specific for the retirement. Like I talked to someone at the beginning before everybody came. It is challenging and requires a lot of money if you want to retire. In Germany, they don't have a specific residence permit or visa that is called retirement, like in Spain or Portugal. But they definitely, they have a specific type of residence permit, other that you can apply. I call it the millionaire visa. You need a lot of money, and if you're over the age of 55 or 45, actually, you would have to show that you have health insurance that covers you, and if possible, German, but there are also international health insurance companies that are recognized by the immigration office. So this is something that is possible, not cheap though. The cost is an issue also for freelancer, also to get a rental agreement. So yes, rental agreement, this is something, it's a painful topic. Finding apartment for long-term. Long-term is basically unlimited here in Germany. In many of the places, if not really most of the places in Germany, it's the tenants have more rights than the owners of the apartments, which is painful for the owners, but better for the tenants. And therefore it makes finding a long-term apartment very, very hard and challenging. There are basic documents that you need to get, which is Schufa, which is the financial history in Germany, not outside of Germany. And people that come with a lot of savings find themselves, okay, what do we do now? The basic documents require also pay slips, the last 3 pay slips. And of course, there are a few more, but this is the main issue for newcomers, because so therefore I suggest short-term apartment beginning for 3 months to 1 year, even if possible to prolong it. Main issue is with freelancers, as you pointed out. There, I always say that there are, they have the class system here. Employees and tenants are the higher class. And those who own their apartment or they're freelance or not employees, let's call it like that, freelancers, self-employed, and other that are not, they're just don't get social rights, and it's hard to find an apartment if you don't have payslips. There are other ways to show for freelancers financial history. Obviously, Shufa is possible to get after a while because you have already cell phone, you have bank account, you have all these financial things that can be in the Shufa. So it is possible to get a positive Shufa and not only a clean one. But pay slips, instead of a pay slip, you can show tax statements or others, and of course, recommendations from previous landlords. But it is possible. You have to be very creative, and you have to find someone who would be really interested in you as a family or a couple or individuals to actually take the apartment. And again, the main point here is patience. And it takes time to find an apartment. It takes time with bureaucracy. It takes time with finding a job. At the end, in my opinion, it's worth it. We have the majority of people coming from, I call it, politically unstable countries, and people come here. Yes, it's not really the best politics and environment sometimes, political environment, but it is better, quiet, and peaceful than other countries that I encounter. And for this and this balance that you don't have to work in a contract of 80 hours and just decrease it to 50 hours a week, it's worth it. You just need to have patience. And I see there are no more questions. So is there anyone that is interested to ask more questions, that maybe topics that we didn't talk about that you want to raise? Okay. So thank you very much for coming.
Sorry, I have a
Yes,
question.
yes, yes.
Okay. So my husband and I were trying to apply over there as a working visa, but it's kind of hard because you have to look for a job and you have to have the employer to sponsor you. That way, you can request that visa through the German embassy here. But
Here
do
is
you
where?
speak in Florida? We are in the U.S.
Okay.
We are in the U.S. So my main question is like we are trying to apply as a student visa because I know that if as much as improving the German language, for sure you can get a better a better position in the job market because you speak the language, right? But I know that they changed the rule that you are allowed to work only 20 hours if you are a student visa.
Yes, I'll stop you there because
Okay.
this topic of today is reality check on German life,
Okay.
and not as much about how the visa structure is. You are definitely, you can definitely write us, and we can schedule a call to talk about the things that you need.
Thank
Wow, how do you go about finding a job in Germany after you get there? It really depends on the industry. It's really, really different for each industry. But this is again something that maybe a professional recruiter can help you with. So this is something that worth checking. For those of you who are still here, so we would we would post our next webinars for the rest of the year next Friday. So make sure to keep up. And thank you very much for joining me this evening, morning, and afternoon. So thank you very much.